You are as old as your spine. That is a really, really powerful concept to understand. And what we're going to be talking today about is that a lot of people are wrapping their spines in cotton wool. And unfortunately, a lot of that comes from really bad advice that people are getting from healthcare professionals. What's up, everyone? In case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. I'm joined here by Phil White, our resident physiotherapist, and we are Unity Gym, the gym that teaches people how to be strong, flexible, and athletic. If you want to know how we do it, grab one of the free downloads, the Flexibility Blueprint, the Strength Blueprint, or the Nutrition Blueprint, and come and join the UMS Movement Mastermind group on Facebook, where we record these podcasts live and answer your questions. How are you doing today, Phil?
Very well. This is a topic that I really like to talk about because, I fully agree that people can get understandably so worried about their backs, but the best thing you can do for it is getting strength and conditioning and movement through your spine. So I think it's a great thing to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And this is, I've got a lot of skin in the game for this one because I come from a background of having a really compromised spine, and I've got spondylolisthesis and a pars defect, and that was something that was, they couldn't tell me if it was an acute injury or a chronic injury or a combination of both, because it was diagnosed when I had a really nasty fall in the army and got some x-rays, and they were like, wow, look at you, L4 and L5. And so I've come from a place where I was in a lot of pain to a place where I'm not in a lot of pain. And what we're going to talk about today is a big part of it. And we see this a lot in Unity Gym. One of our most recent members, Nick, who joined just this year, and I think he may have even seen you once or twice, maybe not though. When he came here, he was talking to me about when I showed him how to deadlift, and he said, oh man, I can't deadlift. And I said, why not? And he talked about all these bulging discs and herniated discs and everything that he had and his reasons why, and through some really basic stuff that we do with people, 6 months later he's got this grin on his face as he deadlifts almost body weight now, saying that his back's never felt better, and that happened in 6 months.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the back is definitely one of those things that people just treat like it's it's totally separate to every other part of the body. Certain rules apply to rehab of your limbs and every other and major joints in your body, but then when it comes to the spine, I guess there's sort of this. It's almost like it's not even like it doesn't fit with the rest of the human sort of system. So I find it a really interesting one, and it's understandable. You've got some pretty important structures running through your spine, so you do want to be careful with it, obviously. So we're not saying everyone with back pain go out and deadlift, but it's so important to understand that, just like we've talked about with every other joint and structure in the body, there's active and passive structures, and your passive structures in this case, your vertebra, your discs, the ligaments that run either side of your spine. And if your muscles aren't strong around it, then you're going to be relying on those passive structures. So it means it makes it even more clear why it is so important to be strengthening and moving your spine through range. So. Yeah,
and it really is an interesting thing as well, because I've been in the fitness space for 17 years now as a trainer, and I've definitely come through a period where it seemed to be the consensus, at least in the circles that I was in, that you did have to really brace the spine, and if you're lifting weights, the spine shouldn't flex or extend or anything. It should stay fixed while you hinge at the hip and all these things. And I remember when I started to hear people talk differently, and it was a really and it still is, it's still a very debated issue. Some people are firm believers that that loading the spine through flexion, meaning if you don't understand what that means, it's when you curl the spine forward, so you lean forward with holding weight in your hands or on the back of your shoulders, that's a bad thing. And then some people say it's a really good thing. I'm definitely a firm believer that the right dose is a very good thing, and it's just a matter of choosing the correct load and figuring out how your body responds to that. And in the example of Nick, the guy that I gave before, when he started, we were doing loaded Jefferson curls, and I just told him, I said, do it without any weight, but just go through the movement. And from there, he built up to having a really strong spine. What do you think about that, Phil?
Yeah, I think often people sort of have, just like the example yesterday with Yanni's mate who went from, thinking that he couldn't run because he couldn't do 7Ks. It's exactly the same thing here where people, think, oh, if I can't do a X weight deadlift, then I shouldn't be deadlifting. And really, as you sort of point out with the Jefferson curl, it's all just, I'm sure people are probably getting sick of this message who listen to us often, but it's just such a key thing. You've just got to gradually expose your body to things. So when it comes to bending at the spine, starting off unweighted is a great way to go, and just getting used to the movements, getting being able to be kind of relaxed in those positions, or as active as you need to be, but comfortable in that position, because so much of spinal pain comes down to people's perceived threat, which is, as we've talked about a lot with pain science, such a key part of, it's often you're so worried about your back that any signal coming out from there is, just getting so enhanced that you feel pain that's not even there. But it might be related to, a past x-ray that when you've had a radiologist or a doctor say, just like your pars defect and spondylolisthesis example, where they say, oh, wow, that's really bad. As soon as you got that in your mind, that sticks with you, and that really enhances, your pain experience. So exactly like you said with, it's all about just gradually exposing your body.
So. Yeah, I think for a lot of people it comes from, like you say, a past experience as well, but sometimes it can be from, if you've had a back spasm before, or something where you get a little bit of inflammation and you feel a little bit of nerve pain, it can be something that really debilitates you. A lot of people have had this experience where they've hurt their back and they've been bedridden for several days, and the back, considering that the neck is still part of the spine, so the back and the neck, if you have something that goes on like that where you get really bad inflammation, there's nothing like it elsewhere in the body.
It really really rocks your identity. It takes over. Really controls you.
Yeah, and so for a lot of people, if they've had that kind of experience, they're so fearful of having it again that they do what we're saying here, which is they wrap their spine in cotton wool and they think, no, I can't do that. But what we want to try and get across is that the spine is not as fragile as people think. The spine is very, very strong and very robust, and it has to be, because if you pick something up, like if your arms can carry it or your legs can lift it, your spine can take it. It's not like the legs can produce all this power but the spine can't. What we always talk about on this show is that we want people to understand that the body is designed to be used as a unit. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about exercise selection and choosing machines versus free weights and things like that. And it's just a matter of understanding load management. But I remember the first time I was challenged with this was when I had thought that the way that you had to deadlift was with a straight spine, and if you did anything else, it was going to be really, really bad. And then I was watching Bass and some of the power lifters where they had this technique where they were deadlifting with a rounded back, and they were just deadlifting insane amounts of weight. And I used to always just fall back on this, their spines will be wrecked when they're older. But then when I started learning from people that knew a hell of a lot more about the spine than I do, so Tom Cartwright, our friend who's a chiropractor, who started to learn from someone called Sarah Keys, who's a physiotherapist who specialised in the spine and in the back, and she started to really challenge what people think about loading the spine, and that she's actually trying to get across that it's actually essential for spine health to load the spine, that it's a really important part of of having a healthy spine. Yeah,
so the lifting into flexion is like a bit of a different discussion than loading the spine as generally being a good thing, and I definitely can 100% say that loading the spine is key. Just like with every other part of your body, you've got to give it stimulus to respond and adapt, and that includes your discs. An appropriate amount of load is the thing that keeps them strong and full of the fluid that maintains the space in your spine. And the discussion around loading into flexion is a really interesting one. And with the guys who do powerlifting, if you watch Bass lift, he's very much got the intention of keeping neutral, but it's okay if it comes outside of that. You want to generally, with the type of weights that with maximal weights, avoid going into end range flexion, but certainly a neutral, trying to maintain neutral, but having a slight amount of flexion is not going to be an issue at all. So. Yeah. I wouldn't be going into trying to, Jefferson curl the kind of weights they're lifting, but certainly.
Oh, no, of course not. Yeah. But, I can't remember the exact numbers on this, and maybe you can help me, but I was really amazed to learn how much, let's say you're holding a bar and you're deadlifting, how much more pressure gets put on the vertebra, on the spine, from only an inch of forward movement from the bar. So basically moving the bar from its optimal path of being above the center of your feet to being an inch forward or even 2 inches forward. Like how much more pressure puts on the...
Leverage is a thing. Like, if anyone's done any physics, you can know that as soon as you start to increase that lever arm, like it's going to massively increase the load exerted at the fulcrum. So, I'm not great at physics, so I hope I got those terms right. But the principles are basically if the weight doesn't stay at that sort of midline, then it's going to become increasingly more difficult. And that's been one of the things this week. I feel like I've spent more time talking to clients here than anything else is just working on deadlift form and really trying to help them with their bar path, because a similar sort of conversation I guess you had with Nick, with people saying, I'm worried about deadlifts for X reasons, and then as soon as I put them into that position, they're suddenly like, oh, okay, my knees feel better, my back feels better. Like getting that form is so essential to doing this well, and it changes it from being like a decent exercise if you're a bit sloppy to an excellent exercise and a really safe exercise if you do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best exercises, one of the biggest bang for your buck exercises out there.
One thing I really know, because I've had kind of chronic back pain since I was about 12 years old, and I've really noticed since, like in the last year particularly, like going from training here regularly to then being stuck at home and not being able to get the same kind of load through my body in a progressive sort of way. Like my back just started feeling so crappy when I was on lockdown, then coming back to the gym again, getting more into lifting and also a bit more of the mobility stuff, feeling just 100%. Infinitely better.
100%. So let's have a quick answer a couple of questions on the live stream here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Anyone that's watching live, give us a little shout out. Let us know your name and where you're watching from so that we can give you a shout out. So Lee Clements is saying that they've had some issues in C4 and C5 a couple of years ago. Can an aged spine mend? I'm going to, from my understanding, and I was surprised to hear this, but because people always talk about, I've got stuffed discs, and like it's a terminal thing and like they never get better. But correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but I heard that the discs can fully regenerate within 3 years. Is that true?
I'm not 100% on that. I'd have to look.
But they do regenerate, right?
The thing that I want to make really clear is that morphology doesn't equal pain or function. So you can have a shitty looking x-ray, but that doesn't mean that you'll be limited anyway. So that's the thing that people really have to try and disconnect from, is that what things look like will control what you can do and how much pain you feel. And so I don't even care if the discs can mend, but you can certainly get to a pain-free functional place with having discs that look a bit squashed or a bit out of shape, or having stuff going on in your spine that just doesn't look like it does for a 10-year-old person who's just grown up and is got really all new parts. So people have this real thing about what things look like, and morphology does not equal pain or function. So we get used to seeing wrinkles on our face and an aging outside of our body, and that's kind of accepted and normal. But then as soon as people look inside the body, they freak out and think well, it doesn't look like I did when I was when I was 20. So I think it's Lee, it's a really important just mindset to shift there about having an aging spine that mends, and rather you have a body that can and a brain that can adapt and can do all the things you need to do. And as you start to move more, as you start to get your neck moving nicely and loading even through your neck a little bit, that will give your spine the best sort of environment to then have positive adaptations where you keep your bone mineral density, you keep the fluid coming back into the disc, all of those things that stop happening when you deload and stop exercising and moving. Yeah,
look, I'll give you, Lee, I remember hearing this, and if Phil isn't 100% certain on it, it must have come from Tom Cartwright, who is a chiropractor, and I remember hearing, so again, don't quote me on this, don't take this to the bank, but I remember hearing that discs do regenerate, and herniated discs can fully regenerate back to a healthy disc within 3 years. And I'm going to tell you just a quick little anecdotal story about a friend of mine. His name's Anthony Minicello. He's one of the most highly accomplished rugby league players in Australia, which for anyone that's overseas, rugby league is one of the two big football codes over here. It's one of the highest impact sports that you could ever do. They don't wear pads and shoulder pads and helmets like they do in gridiron. They pretty much have nothing on, and they just ram into each other. And he went from being at the top of his game to having spinal injuries. And he told me this, and he showed me his X-rays and his MRI reports. The head physio at his club ran out on the field one day and told him to get straight off the field because they found this bone fragment that was like a couple of millimeters away from his spinal cord, and they were saying, like, you could take one hit and get paralyzed from this. Basically, he showed his X-ray, and he showed me his X-ray. All of the discs in the vertebra were black, and the surgeon told him that they're meant to be white, and what that was showing was a real lack of circulation and blood flow. And he went from that state to changing.
Don't really get blood flow into your disc.
No?
It's more
Okay.
It's a fluid.
So what would that be? So help
basically,
me. Why would they look black instead of white?
Well, basically, if the space gets like compressed and closed.
Right.
down.
Okay. So you have to excuse me. I can't explain this as well as Phil can. I'm just remembering the story. Remember, I'm a personal trainer, not a physio or a doctor. But the point is that he was told, you need to stop. You need to change careers and do something different. And he went and got some different advice. He went and started. That's how I met Anthony, because he started training with Aaron. And Aaron, a friend of mine, he got him to change his diet, change the way he trained, got him to start mobilizing his spine, doing all things differently, focused on reducing inflammation. And he not only did he come back from that, but he came back to playing at the highest level that you can play in rugby league. And he made what's called the greatest comeback in league of modern times.
And he was doing some targeted neck strengthening work within that, wasn't he?
Targeted,
like,
oh my
like
God,
weighted,
so much.
weighted
so
neck
much.
stuff. And that's something that people often like kind of just, you strengthen the rest of your body, you do weights for the rest of your body, but then for some reason for like, these really essential muscles that around the head, like a lot of people just totally ignore that as a training thing. So that's it.
Look, I think it's we'll get onto Blakely, onto your question in just a sec, bro. But I think it's really important to point out that when it comes to the whole body, including the spine, motion is lotion. So not only do you need to load the spine, load the muscles around the spine to create strength like the rest of the body, but you need to create motion in the spine. And when you think that the spine has 32 or 33 vertebra, again, that's coming from Tom Cartwright. I think the only reason why there's a variance is because of how many are fused down in the coccyx, in the sacrum, so 32 or 33 vertebra, that is if you look at how long the spine is, to have that many joints in it, you want movement in those joints, you really do. Should we get on to Blakely's question here, Phil? So Blakely's saying, hey, Phil, what about the conventional wisdom that you don't put direct pressure on a disc when foam rolling it?
So you mean avoiding going centrally down your spine?
I think that's what he's saying. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, if you had to worry about that, you'd have to worry about sitting on chairs. You'd have to worry about leaning on little things. Like it's you're not going to cause problems, and especially because when you go into a foam roll, you're going into extension, and extension is going to be like generally the thing you do for disc pain, because often you get when you haven't bulged from flexion, you're going to have that kind of posterior bulge, and extension is generally like the easing thing for there. I wouldn't really worry about it.
I've never heard that before. I mean, I roll on a rumble roller, which has little things that intentionally push in between.
And you've got like muscles that are, your rectus spine on either side, your multifidus, your rotatories, your intertransversi, like all these muscles that then sit around, spinous and the spinous process and the transverse process, and then like deep to that is the spinal cord, and then deep to that is the discs. So you're not going to be even, and discs like having pressure from the side would be totally fine. So I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't be getting people to add sit on your hips and your shoulders to get like extra weight sort of forcing you into it, but I wouldn't, the disc wouldn't be your worry there. There'd be a whole lot else to worry about there.
For sure. So, and I mean, in all honesty, Blakely, like for me, when somebody comes to me with a compromised spine or the perception of a compromised spine, one of the first things that I would get anybody to do at the most grassroots level of creating a healthy spine is to lay on a foam roller and go into, flexion and extension on it.
Yeah, with spinal rehab, especially with kind of nerve symptoms, it's often about finding there's generally an aggravating direction and an easing direction. And one of the ways in which this kind of modality of treatment came about was this guy who came in to see a physio, old bloke, sore back, and the physio was like, was with another client. He's like, okay, go lie down on the table and I'll be with you in a sec. And the table was like one of the massage tables with like a face hole was set up for someone to sit on. So the back was raised up. So you'd kind of be, sitting up with your legs out in front. But he saw it and this is why I always have to be really clear with my patients about exactly what to do, because he went and put his face in the hole and then was lying. So he was face down, but he was into this massive sort of extension, because you can imagine instead of sitting on it, he was face down into it. And the physio came in just absolutely freaked out, thinking, oh no, what do I got? What's this guy done to his spine? He's going to be, in all this pain. And then the old bloke flips over and he's like, oh, that's the best I've felt in weeks. Because there's and then this physio developed this whole practice around how to basically find the direction of preference, and that's a real kind of cornerstone of spinal rehab. So when it comes to doing foam roller stuff, extension, working heavily into extension on the foam rollers can be a really nice way of treatment. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's something that for me, my own personal journey with relieving my back pain, the biggest breakthrough that I had was starting to actually intentionally mobilize the spine and move around and explore loaded flexion and loaded lateral flexion as well. Those were big breakthrough moments for me, because it's something that I'd just never done before, and now I get to the point
it just
where
makes you so much more resilient, because as we've talked about with every other part of training and rehab, if you expose your body to positions in a kind of progressive and controlled manner, then it means that you'll be that much more resilient when you do something, unexpected or, outside of the gym context, where you may be leaning for your kid and you're bent over and you're in sort of a combination of spinal, lateral side flexion and forward flexion, and then loading that position by having to pick up a kid who's, about to run onto the road, or, you're reaching up behind you to grab something from a shelf behind you. If all you've ever done is basically sit at a computer and do this, then you're
or if all the exercise you've done,
and I was about to say, or if you're in the gym,
yeah.
and if you're only used to bracing and doing really sagittal plane, which is straightforward movements, then it's just going to be a bit of a shock to you when you start to do anything outside of that. So by adding in strength and mobility in a controlled progressive manner into a variety of ranges, and you're going to be resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of times that I've heard our members talk about how they've thrown their back out, or when they don't come to the gym for several days, and then they come back and ask them what happened, and they say, man, I was just at home and I just bent down and picked up a bag, and I just went, oh, like that. And what you just said there is exactly why it's going on. And it's a combination of inflammation as well, you don't think so?
Well, I think information, I think, generally good, plays a role in everything. But I think the cornerstone fundamentals is basically unexpected exposure to things that you have not practiced or trained. And particularly when, if you've only done gym work and you're only ever doing kind of Valsalvic breathing, bracing for a movement, and then you go and lift something without doing that, then the kind of motor patterns around bracing and lifting and controlling the spine through load is just, it's not practiced, it's not rehearsed, and so it can cause issues. And the thing about with muscle spasms, it usually comes down to overloading, just like with every other structure when we talk about what is tightness and what is sort of knots in your back, in your muscles. The same thing happens with your back, where if you overload a structure from even sitting for a long period of time, your rectus spinae muscles are doing pretty much a full day isometric hold with some of the pressure then going into your, I think it's your annular ligaments, which are the ones that run down your spine to hold like against flexion. So basically, if you are overloading those structures throughout the whole day, then that's going to be, a point where you start to get spasm in those muscles. And then when you try and do something else with them, then they lock down, they spasm up, and keep you from doing any movement. And that's why you get really stiff back because your muscles are like, hey, I've done as much as I can. And so that's why you need to progressively overload them, give them more capacity so that when you, they'll be that much more sort of supple and ready for, things outside of just general sitting.
For me, like if I do, we've spoken about the minimum viable workout that we do in a day and the goal workout and then the ideal workout. My minimum workout every day is a bit of spine mobility and a little bit of hip mobility and maybe a bit of a squat routine and some, like it's basically, what we do in this 18-minute stretching routine. But that's like, if I don't do that for maybe 2 days, my body starts to feel really, really crap. And I've just developed that over the years. I've just figured out that those are the things that at least make me feel good. And that's, at the end of the day, the most important minimum thing that I'm going to do is just to make me feel good. I want to feel good in my body. I want to get up, and if I go for a walk, I don't feel like, oh my God, I feel like crap.
And the beauty of that stuff is, you don't have to be in a gym to do that. You can do it from anywhere. So
yeah. It's so
pretty
good.
Ideal.
It's so good. So yeah, look, if you the take homes for today is that the spine isn't as fragile as people think. It is stronger, but it depends where you are on the ladder. For some people, you're going to need to start at a lower point of exposing yourself to the things we've been talking about today. And if you've got any fears, of course, just remember what Phil always says and what we completely agree with. Don't take this as medical advice. Go and see a professional if you've got
absolutely.
any
And things to keep look out for, which is a definite sign that you should go see someone, is anytime you've got like nerve symptoms down the arms or down your legs, so tingling, numbness, shooting pain, burning pain, and any change in bladder or bowel control, because the nerves, when they pass through your pelvis and hips, are actually involved there. So just something to definitely look out for. If you have pain that doesn't go away overnight, if you start getting unexpected weight loss, or if you have you
feel dizzy when you look back.
Yeah, if you have some like anything around dizziness and headache, that kind of stuff related to your back pain, and anytime the pain just like doesn't have a position at all where it feels like okay. So it's really worth I think, if you have back pain at all, it's really good to get some guidance from a professional to help you with it. But if they tell you to,
wrap yourself in cotton wool, then
maybe get a second opinion.
Yeah, maybe get a second opinion. And, once you, from my perspective as a trainer, the reason why I would say any of those things that Phil said is I just want somebody to go to an expert that is credible, that can say you need more looking into this, or you're okay to do movement. But once you get to that point, man, it's time to start moving. Motion is lotion. Game on. Yeah, and let's you like anything else, you be progressive. You don't don't be looking at someone doing a 40 kilo Jefferson curl and thinking, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that, or even worse, I'm going to go and try that. Think to yourself, okay, well, that's somebody that's worked for a while to get there. I might just try that without any weight, and then I'll try it with 2 kilos, and then 4 kilos, and then, and just progressively, gradually overload. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This is a topic we haven't spoken about for a while, and it is a really, really important one. I might even I might give Tom Cartwright, our friend, the chiropractor, a call and see if he can come on this week, because I think this would be a really good week to get a chiropractor on the show so that we can answer some questions for you. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we will, Yanni's saying here, for those of you on the podcast, Yanni's saying progressive overload is critical, it's key, and load management is critical. So thanks for tuning in. Tune in again for the rest of this week, where we will go deeper and deeper into spine health and what you need to do and what you need to not do to make sure that you have a healthy spine. Any questions, get them in and we'll answer them. Of course, ask your questions in the UMS Movement Mastermind on Facebook group. On the Facebook group, if you haven't joined that, go and join it. And if you haven't done so yet, go and download one of our free blueprints, the Strength Blueprint, Flexibility Blueprint, or Nutrition Blueprint. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.